Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, we could really use your help. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, recently named the Too Opinionated podcast one of its top 100 podcasts. This is a monumental feat for this program. We're a father and son team out of a small town in West Virginia, have been doing this for about 5 years. There's 15 million podcasts out there. About 40,000 of those get to the point that they're listed on IMDb. Out of those 40,000 out of the 15 million, we were ranked number 82. Something that we're just immensely proud of. We're so thankful for our listeners, our watchers, our fans. Thank you so, so much. If you would like to help us out, and we're asking for it, please. It's easy. It's really easy. It's free. If you go to IMDb, that's imdb.com, look up Too Opinionated Podcast, and just take a look at the page. That's all you have to do. I mean, you're welcome to look at the cast, look at the episodes so you can kind of see who's been on the program. Do whatever you want. But even just bringing up the page, imdb.com, Too Opinionated Podcast, bring up the page, look at it. That helps us so much. So please, if you can do anything, we would really appreciate that. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Love to have your subscription there. It's also free. And you can also check out our website, meistercon.com, where you'll find almost 700 episodes, audio and video, available on there. There's also a terrific blog from Brett, and it'll let you know anything that we have going on in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything that we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so, so much. We appreciate you so much. I can't express enough how appreciative we are of all of you. We never expected to do as well as we have, and that's all because of you. Thank you so much. Enjoy that interview. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. So I've got the director and manager of the Alban Arts and Conference Center here in my hometown of St. Albans, Adam Bryan, with me. So welcome, Adam.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
I know, and everybody listening or watching knows, who knows you, you're a hell of an actor.
Thank you.
I mean, really, every time I see you on stage, I tell that to Emily. I'm like, we're lucky that you're here in St. Albans, because if you wanted to make a living acting, I think you could.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel lucky to be where I am, to be honest with you. I am extremely lucky to be making a career in theater and in the arts. From the day I graduated college till today, I've been employed in theater somehow or another, and I couldn't be happier to be in St. Albans, in your hometown, and my new hometown, to raise my kids here, etc. I'm very blessed to be here.
Yeah, well, and I should have said, you are making your living kind of as an actor, for sure, in theater. But if you wanted to go to say, L.A. or New York and actually work in theater, TV, movies, I think you could. I think you could. But
appreciate that.
Don't do that. Stay here.
I'll do my best. Now, if somebody calls me tomorrow and offers me $1 million for something, I don't know.
Well, if you have to go, if you could just, turn that back into maybe a movie theater, I'd be okay.
Sure.
I spent a lot of time there growing up.
If they pay me enough to move away, Michael, I'll take care of the Alban. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there when I was younger. My parents, they lived in St. Albans briefly, but we spent most of our time living in Winfield. But we used to come over to see movies all the time because there was the mall right there.
Sure.
We had St. Albans Mall, and and Mom would drop us off at the movies, and she'd go and shop. So it's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Yep.
Well, so let's start this way, Adam. tell me a little bit about your background. Had you always wanted to do something in entertainment, or did that happen kind of, as life does sometimes, or, was there something else you were doing and kind of fell into it? Kind of explain how that
Sure.
came about.
Well, I don't know if I always wanted to do something in entertainment and acting, but for pretty much as long as I can remember, that's sort of been the one thing that I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. I've been lucky enough that in my life I've felt like this is what I'm supposed to do, and I've been able to be gainfully employed to do so. But background, I grew up in Northwestern Pennsylvania, and I never really did any acting other than my father is a pastor, so I got thrown into church plays here and there.
Yeah.
But I never really did any acting till I was probably maybe say 10 or 12, and a company called Missoula Children's Theater, based out of Missoula, Montana. They do a national tour every year. I think they're still in operation, actually, where they come in and they have 2 actors that they employ, and they stop in a town on a Monday. They have auditions on Monday. They cast the show with all the kids in that community, and they rehearse Monday through Friday, and we perform, I believe it was Friday evening, if not Saturday. So we learned a whole show in a week and performed it in a week, and then that company went to the next town, and we're in another town on Monday. So I did several shows with them when they came to our town, and that's really where I got this is something I really like. I really, the roar of the crowd, the applause, the laughter, all of that, that really got into my blood, and that was something I've been chasing ever since.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I think entertainment or acting especially, it's so interesting because most of us have those moments growing up where we want to be something, whatever it is. But then life comes along, we end up doing, something completely different. But I haven't found that really with actors. It's like you figure it out some point in your childhood, and then you stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's one of those things, once it really gets in you, it's hard to get it out. It really is. And I think one of I mentioned the roar of the crowd and the applause and the laughter. That's one thing. I know a lot of people on your podcast are film people, and
right.
The few times I've done film, I personally don't enjoy it anywhere close to as much as I do live theater, because I don't get that immediate response from an audience. I don't get that immediate feedback. I get, the cast and the crew saying good job, and that's all well and good, but there's nothing like an entire crowd, laughing with you, crying with you, sitting silent with you. There's nothing like that.
Well, it's a much more intimate experience.
For sure.
Then, a lot of times if you're on set, you may not even know what it is you're performing in. You may know a little bit about what your character's doing, but just how that character fits into the bigger scheme of the movie or TV show, a lot of times you don't even know.
Yeah. I find it so weird that I see interviews with actors that, well, I was in this film with such and such, but we never really met each other because we were never on set together. That just is so foreign to me, that those backstage moments and the time during rehearsal, that's the best part of the process for me. As far as an acting goes. It's just so foreign and weird to me that's how, and now too, with all the computer graphics and CGI, like a lot of times you're acting with a character that hasn't even been created digitally yet. It's so
you're acting.
I admire it, but it's just foreign.
That's going to become something else at some point.
Yeah.
That is pretty strange. I get it. Like for me, I couldn't act, but if I did, I probably wouldn't like theater because I'm an introvert, and I have trouble being the center of attention, with that. But a lot of actors are like that.
Very much so. I personally am. I find when I talk to like childhood friends or friends from college, the position I find myself in, where I'm running a company. I'm heavily involved in our community as well with the Chamber of Commerce and all the festivals and whatnot. And I'm the theater guy, so everyone's like, Adam will get in front of crowds and talk to people, and I really don't. I don't want to say I hate that, but I don't like that. I would much rather, be on the outskirts, observing, not really being the center of attention. But when it comes to theater, I've always, when I'm on stage, at character wise, I think the reason that I like it and I'm okay with it is I've always sort of thought of myself as, while on stage, it's not me that's up there, it's that character. So that character doesn't even know that an audience exists. So nor can I, and I think that's what allows me to really just put that aside. It doesn't really even occur to me once I get out there, because
it's a nice loophole.
Yeah.
No, that's what, a lot of actors tell me when I talk to them. Be like, yeah, it's once I'm up there and in character, I'm fine. But if it was just me having to go up there and talk to a group of people, I'd be a mess.
Yep, likewise. Very much so.
Yeah, I totally get that. So if you weren't doing all this work in the community and then theater and all this, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's tough. If I weren't doing theater, or stuff in the community, I'm a big outdoorsman at the end of the day. I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania. I started hunting when I was 10 or 11 with my father, and did, if I could find a way to do something with, whether it be like the DNR and conservation, whether it be, professional hunter, anything outdoors, I think it'd be where my shift would go. If I had to like build a career. Now, if I lost my job tomorrow and needed to pay the bills to take care of my kids, that probably wouldn't be where I'd go immediately.
Right. Yeah, well, that's different. Then you just take what you have to.
Yeah. I'd probably go be like a car salesman or something, because I can talk pretty well.
That's all we have here in town anyway.
Yeah.
It's like 90% of the town is a car dealer.
Yeah. I know quite a few car dealers as well. I probably could get a
in with them.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you worked for a while with Theater West Virginia, right?
I did. Yeah, that's what brought me to the state to begin with, was Theater West Virginia. I worked in Chillicothe, Ohio at an outdoor drama called Tecumseh for a summer. And then one of my friends that was working there with me that summer auditioned at Theater West Virginia, and I went over there to audition towards the end of that summer, and they were doing on their educational tour, they were doing a show called The Last Hanging in Pike County, which was a Hatfields and McCoy's based show, but focused on Cotton Top Mounts, who was really one of the last people to really lose their life in the feud, and he was sort of a fall guy. That, long story, but I walked in and I didn't have quite as nice of a beard as I do now, but I had a beard, a decent beard, and they needed somebody to play Devil Anse, and Devil Anse is known for having a big beard, and I swear the beard is why, which is why I don't want to say I refuse, but I refuse to get rid of it, because that's in my mind, my whole livelihood in West Virginia was sort of based on, I got hired because I like to think I'm a pretty decent actor as well, but at the end of the day, they didn't have to buy a beard. They didn't have to glue a beard on me. This guy looks good in a beard, and he owns it. So
it's like, this guy's a decent actor, and he's going to save us money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I've never not, I don't want to say I've never not had a beard since then, but I've never, since I got hired there, I've always had some form of facial hair, except for a few times where I know the last time I really shaved it was at an auction, and board members bought my beard. They had to pay me to shave it. It cost you $500 to make me shave. That's the going rate at this moment.
Well, I can tell you, you'll never play for the Yankees.
No.
Because they'll make you shave it.
Nope. I'd rather not play for the Yankees than shave it.
Yeah, same. The story in my family is that we have a relation to Tecumseh. Right? Okay. So looking at me, though, I'm like, I don't see it, but okay. But supposedly we had, somewhere back in the tree, we had a gentleman that was raised by Indians. He was captured, raised by Indians, and at some point married an Indian that was related to Tecumseh. So that's whether
Very
that's
cool.
true, I don't know, but it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, absolutely. That genealogy stuff is a lot of fun. My grandma got into that really, really hot and heavy for a while, and she traced on my name is Adam, but my grandmother on my mom's side, her mother's maiden name was Adams.
Oh, okay.
And she traced the Adams lineage all the way back to John Quincy and John Adams,
That's
president.
nice.
So that side of the family has been in America for a
Hey,
long
that's
time.
enough, especially in today's climate. That's enough reason to run for president.
Right. That's true. This year with it being such it's a political, there's an election this year nationally, and then here locally there's a city election as well. I've had about, I don't know, I bet in the last week I've had almost a dozen people ask me when I'm running for mayor, which is something I never even thought about doing, but maybe one day.
You should think about that.
Maybe one day. I work with the city, so watching how the people that are in that job do that job to do it well.
Hard job.
I work a lot as it is in the job I'm at, and I think they work even more. So with young kids right now, that's something I wouldn't even contemplate because I like my kids too much.
That's right.
So
yeah, it's a tough job.
Once they get older, teenage years, when they don't want me to be around as much anyway, maybe I'll think about it, but that's down the road.
Yeah, once the kids are grown, maybe.
Yeah. Then I got time, sure. But with 5 and 3, they're at that age where they like me being around. So
that's right.
I'm gonna enjoy that as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, and you should.
Yeah.
That working 60, 70 hours a week, it gets old after a while.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I'm lucky enough that I have a job where most of the time I'm able to bring my kids with me. My kids are exposed to more stuff in my line of work than most kids are by the time they're 20s.
The great thing about that is you never know what effect that's going to have on them. Maybe they grow up and get into something in entertainment, or maybe they get up or grow up and want to help out in the town that they're living in. You never know.
Yep.
But I think that type of stuff, that's a positive. Anytime you can spend time with your kids, even if you're working while you're doing it, that's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. Hey, if you ever need a good Tecumseh book, Panther in the Sky.
I know that book, actually.
Oh, yeah. James Alexander Tom. Excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yep. I believe I think I read that when I was working there that summer, actually, as just sort of getting into, I played at that show. There's very few white guys, for lack of better terms, and none of them but one are anywhere decent of humans. And I was a guy you didn't want to succeed in the end.
That's right.
You wanted my character to get taken out.
Hey, you're in good company, though. Costner played that role.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's what I tell people. I was like, yeah, me, Costner.
Yeah, one and the same.
He's one of those, and I love Kevin Costner, but he's really kind of limited in his range. But he knows exactly where to put that range.
Sure.
It's like every role that he's in, he's good in it.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's within that area that he's just strong in. That's my opinion, but
yeah. No, I get what you're saying there.
Yeah,
I think that's some of the best actors that are out there right now. Just know what they're good at, know what they're not good at, and play to their strengths. That's just smart.
Yeah, a lot of times it just feels like they're just playing themselves, basically, maybe tweaking it a little bit.
Yeah, I've always sort of thought that about when I approach a role in general, is that there's, I'm not the same as any of the characters that I've ever played, but there are things in my personality or in my psyche that are similar, or I can tap into and exaggerate to make that character come to life. So I've always sort of tried to find, even in the worst characters or the best characters, try to find something that is relatable to me. How am I relating to them? So So it's more like me playing that part than it is, me acting at something, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, talk a little bit about, running a local theater, especially in a town where it's very important within the town, and it ties you up into a lot of different, city committees and all that. There's a lot. It's not, you're not just running plays. There's a lot that comes
Not
into
at
this.
all.
But talk a
That used to
little
be
bit
all I
about
did.
the positives and some of the challenges that you face running that theater.
Sure. So when I got hired here, I was working at Theater West Virginia at the time, and I was teaching acting classes. And the Mayor Calloway, Mayor Dick Calloway, was
Yeah.
the mayor at the time here in St. Albans, and he is a former alumni. I don't know if you know this either, but he is a former alumni of Theater West Virginia. He
No, I
was,
didn't know that.
I believe, in one of the, if not the original, the first year that they did a show, he was the stage manager, or like the second or third, I can't remember, but very early on he worked there. So when the city procured this building that I'm sitting in now, the Alban Art Center, he knew that he needed to get something theatrically happening in here. So he contacted his old alma mater, Theater West Virginia. And I was, at the time, I was, probably the most seniored actor that was at that company at the moment.
Right.
And teaching classes. So they sent me up here to teach classes. And me and Dick went out to lunch or dinner one night, and he sort of was telling me about his vision for the arts being sort of an economic driver for the city of St. Albans. That if we have artistic, we have theatrical events and concerts and movies and whatever else artistically, if we have a hub for those things to happen to, people from out of town will come to our town. They will not only see that show, but then they'll go to the restaurant down the road and spend money at that establishment. They might go shopping while they're here. They might get gas while they're here. They might drive by the car dealership and see a car they like. So like, if we're bringing people to town, it will grow the economy of this city. And I really was like, how amazing is that for a small town to be thinking that forwardly, that arts can do that for a community. And I really like that. I was like, that's something I've always sort of believed, that, if we focused more on arts and getting more things artistically in small cities, that people would have a reason to come to these towns.
Right. Makes this a destination.
Makes you a destination. Absolutely. So I think he realized in that conversation how much I sort of agreed with his vision and thought that it could work, etc. And within a couple, I would say a month or so, he was like, I think we're in the market for a new artistic director at the Alban Arts Center. That's something you'd be interested in. And you and me had just talked here recently about how, I worked at a few different places, but why I like being here is that I can build a family, and I'm in one spot. I'm not moving around. I had worked at Theater West Virginia for a while, but every 6 months to 9 months, my contract was up, and I was like, I was technically unemployed for a few weeks till I got hired again. And that mentality of just always never knowing where your next meal comes from at the end of the day is something that, like, I can appreciate those actors that are out there beating the pavement doing that, because that's hard work. Mentally, that is hard work. But that was not something that I liked. I didn't like that at all. I really always had wanted a family. I can remember I've always wanted to be an actor, but the job I really always wanted was to be a dad. And I couldn't see how I could be a dad when I didn't have a 6 month, I didn't have a paycheck coming in 6 months or 9 months or what. Like, you can't
No, that's right.
logically bring a life into the world without a way to take care of them. It just didn't compute to me. So I was like, this is an opportunity that really will allow that to happen, and I can build something here, build something that I'm proud of, and build something the community is proud of. So when I got here in 2009, it'll be 15 years actually this September that I've lived and worked in St. Albans.
I know it's hard to believe it's went by that fast.
No, right? It doesn't. It feels like there are some things that feel like just happened like a year or two ago that are 15 years ago. It's crazy to think of that to me. But when I got here, there was really, I don't want to say there was nothing going on, but there was very little going on in this building. And that was more just because the people that were in charge before didn't really have an artistic background. They had, I think, managerial backgrounds, but
Right.
they didn't have the ability to put on a play or act in a show or direct a show or whatever. Whereas I came with a lot of those skills. I have a degree in theater. My focus was in performance, which I don't use as much anymore. But I've always, even when I'm directing, I approach directing from an actor standpoint. I think of myself as the actor and what would I like direction wise and process wise, etc. And then that's what I try to give my actors. But now I'm not just doing theater. Now that sort of took off, and within 5 to 10 years, I think not only did the administration, but the community as a whole started to get behind that. They started to see that people were coming to town and people were coming to shows, and it was something that when you went out of town, other people said, "Oh, you live in St. Albans, that's where the Alban Arts Center is. We go." And and it was something that even if you aren't an arts appreciator, you appreciated that what the arts was doing for your community. It was giving this town a name, and a good one at that. So that, with that taking off, I really put me in a position where people in the community were now seeing what we were doing here at the Alban Arts Center as something that was beneficial, and something that as a community as a whole was really paying off. And so I get asked all the time, can you be part of this? Can you help this? And I think I've always sort of looked at it as all these different things that I'm part of that aren't artistically based at all. I'm an artist first and always will be. So when I'm running a Chamber of Commerce meeting, because I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce, I'm always thinking about, okay, well, how can we add a little, for lack of better, pizzazz to what we're doing? How do we add some jazz hands to this event? It's always, and I'm always trying to just infuse a little bit of arts and entertainment into what we're doing. And whatever it is that we're doing, I think about one of my favorite Shakespearean sayings is all the world's the stage and all the men and women merely players. I'm always just, what part do I have to play? I'm always I don't want to say I'm always acting, because that makes it sound like I'm fake and I'm not a real person, but I'm always thinking about what part am I playing and what show are we presenting at the end of the day. And I really think that's, people don't think about things in the way I do whatsoever in most of these meetings, because I'm an arts guy. Like the rules are very gray in my mind. Like there's no black lines. Everything can be blurred, and we can, well, that's how it's always been done, but we could do it this way too. And I think overall that's been helpful to the town as a whole, and I think it's been refreshing to a lot of those community events and committees, et cetera, that I serve on, that that we can get a little artsy with things, and we can have a little bit of fun and make these not so fun events a little entertaining. There's no reason why we can't do that.
Yeah, for sure. And it, couple of things St. Albans, I think, gets really right, is they've got really good people on their committees, especially, when you dive down into the volunteer part of it. Most towns don't have the quality of volunteers that St. Albans has. That's just from outside looking in. And then the other part is St. Albans does such a good job just getting the community involved. And I mean, we're constantly doing festivals, art shows, car shows, all this stuff going on just to give the people within the community a chance to do some stuff, but also to bring in traffic from outside.
For sure.
Most towns don't do as well as St. Albans does with that.
No, I agree. And it frustrates me and saddens me when I see things on, and I don't pay attention much to what's on social media.
Right.
By the way, just because I luckily I grew up in that world where I didn't have a cell phone when I was younger.
Same.
You had to be rich to have a computer when you were young. So like that wasn't a thing. So I'm very skeptical about social media stuff, but I see it, my job, I'm always on it because of my work. But it frustrates me a lot when people in this town are like, there's nothing to do in this town. Right. We don't have any, like, if you don't know that there's something to do in St. Albans, you're not looking in the right places, or you're just not you're not somebody, you want only one specific thing, and you don't
Right.
want, you don't want the gamut of things. So, because there's something going on every weekend. The hardest thing about scheduling an event in St. Albans is finding a weekend that there isn't already another event.
That's the truth.
I have that problem. We have that problem at every committee. I was at a committee meeting last week, and we're like, well, we want to do it this night. And we're like, well, somebody's doing something on this night. Yeah. Somebody, that's the hardest part. There's too much. I don't say there's too much going on, because there's not. But there's always something going on. And if you don't realize that, you're not looking in the right place, in my opinion.
No, and it gets, like just in the last decade or so, watching those events, they just keep getting bigger. Yeah, which is what you want. You would expect it to grow if it's doing well, but they just keep growing. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, it is. We did the Yak Fest, which was a committee I served on with your wife. I think we both were on there from the initial year. I know I was. I'm pretty sure she was there the first year we started that too. To see the growth in that event. And last year we did like geofencing. We paid for geofencing.
Yeah.
So like we aren't just, last year we didn't just guesstimate how many people showed up. We have hard numbers of everybody that was with a cell phone that was on the street beeped, to our tally. And it was like over 2 days, we had like 17,000 people. That's more than the entire population of the city. That's crazy. We doubled the population of the city in 2 days.
I mean, yeah. Just think about that. And Yak Fest is based around, a kayak festival basically going down the river, and we're like, hey, what if we put vendors and music with that?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's worked.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's worked. It's huge. And I think this year's going to be even bigger and better. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger.
Well, and it's not like you're getting, like, it's a step or two above what you would normally get at like just small town music, if that makes sense. I mean, we've got some really talented musicians within the town, but you're bringing in some really strong talent, not just from West Virginia, but from outside the state too.
Yeah. We're trying to, at least. Yeah. We're trying to. I think that committee as a whole has started to realize too, not that they never realized it, but really embracing that the music and the once again, the art stuff is what really helps sell that event. The kayaking festival, the Tour de Cole, is a huge draw, for sure. That brings, thousands of people to town alone. But on the festival side, if we don't have good music and good entertainment, they're not going to stay on the street. They're going to walk up and down. They're going to visit a vendor, and they're going to go out the other end. But if they know that there's a good band coming up, they're going to stick around.
They stick around
and spend a little more money. So, yeah.
Well, we're blessed. That Main Street's pretty awesome. I mean, all of us probably would love for it to be a little longer, a little bigger, where you got a little extra parking there, but there's so much parking around it.
Yeah.
It works out great. But it's that you've got, the two sides to come in at, and you can do a lot. And then we've got businesses and restaurants and bars and all that right there. We're kind of blessed. We got a really good Main Street there.
Yeah, those pub crawls that we just started doing a couple years ago are giant because it's so compact. You can go to Charleston or another city, a bigger city than that, and when you do a pub crawl, it's like it's an ordeal. It's an adventure to get from one bar to the next. And where in St. Albans, not that there aren't any bars not on Main Street, because there are several, but on Main Street we've got like 5 to 6 bars within a block and a half. So
being compact, you can close it in.
Yeah.
And let people walk the streets, drinking their drink or whatever. And you can't do that if it's all spread out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, those events have been, I thought the first one was great, and then they've just gotten bigger since.
Yeah, the one we just did here for St. Patty's Day, the Crawl of Green, was I know we sold over 780 tickets, and we estimated that there's probably another 500 to 700 people that were on the street that were either a designated driver or were just there because they were hanging out and didn't buy the ticket. They just stayed inside the bars and restaurants. But looking at 1,500 people ish around for that.
Yeah, pretty good just for just a pub crawl.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. How do you how do you pick your shows at the Alban?
So the shows at the Alban in the last probably I would say 5 to 7 years, we have started having directors apply. So when a director applies, they not only apply to be a director, but they're also recommending or suggesting shows that they
Right.
would like to direct. So when we pick a season, we're often picking the shows we like that are attached to certain directors that have applied as well. And the reason we started doing that is we found our artistically in talking to our directors that they just had more buy-in when they were directing a show that they wanted to direct versus me picking a show that they had really no interest in,
Yeah, that
and I
makes
just
sense.
put it on top of them. So that is how we've been doing it is you apply with the show. If you have a show you want to direct, you tell us the show and that you want to direct. We also have people just submit that here's a show I would like to see. I have no intention of directing it, but here's a show I would like to see. And we pick from that list. We also, depending on what is submitted, the board of directors at the Alban may also suggest other shows that we think would fill in on the season very well, or that might sell a good amount of tickets, or that would meet some of our criteria. Like we always are trying to do every summer a show that involves a bunch of kids that we can do a school show for, so they can have an opportunity and we have a good show that we can market to schools and bring other schools into our building. So we try to fill those gaps, but most of it is picked by just a director submitting what shows they would like to direct, and then we try to pick within that.
Right. Has kind of switching to that model, has that allowed you to do more shows, or are you still doing about the same?
We're still doing about the same as we've always done. I think from about in 2010 was the first time we ever did a theatrical production. I think we did 2 shows that year, but I'm pretty sure in 2011 we did 5. We jumped up pretty quick.
A bunch.
And I think within a year or 2 we were doing about 6 shows on a regular basis. So now we now have another space on the other side of town, which has been amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice space.
It's a fantastic space for our Alban Arts Academy. And since we have that space, that has been what has allowed us to do a few more shows. Yeah. So now next season, I think we're up to 7 shows that we're going to produce, but 2 of them are going to be over at our other Alban Arts Academy space, and 5 will be here at the Alban. So we've actually reduced by 1 show what's going to be in this building, but now we have another building to have more shows at. So that really has helped us. That extra building has allowed us to still continue teaching classes, have another place to rehearse, another place to offer instruction, another place to rent out. Last week we did that. We were talking about candidates in an election year. We did a meet the candidates thing over at our Alban Arts Academy space for the St. Albans election. And then over here at the Alban, we had Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So we actually had packed houses on both sides of town last Friday, which was, I think, the first time we were able to say that, which is pretty awesome. I felt really good about it. Between both buildings, both shows, I think we probably had like 700 plus people knowing about the Alban.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And your shows have been great lately. We saw you in Pontypool, and
that was a fun one.
Steel Magnolias was terrific, and yeah, Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe was great too. So you've been putting out some pretty strong ones.
We've been very lucky in this area. I think we have a very deep pool of talent.
Yeah.
And
there's some good actors here.
Yeah, some very, very good actors. I don't personally think I'm the one of the best actors in the area. There are a lot of actors in this area that I think are better than I, for sure. But we also have a really deep pool of talented directors. There are a lot of people in this area that have degrees in theater and are realizing that you can't really make a career on theater. I'm one of the probably maybe 2 or 3 people in this area that are making a living at theater in this area, but there is enough theater happening in this area that you can really be doing theater all the time in this area. So there's a lot of people that are happily living here that weren't ever really intending to make a career out of theater. It's just something that is really a big hobby for them that they really enjoy.
Where do you get when you bring in talent from outside the state? You've had people come in and do magic shows or whatever it is. Where do you get those? Where do you find those?
So it really just depends. Like the magic shows we've had coming in recently, one of our board members is a magician and is really, really connected in that world. He can name drop. He can name drop magicians that he's talked with that even if you don't know the magic world, you're like, oh, I know that guy. He's world famous. So that board member with the magic stuff, he's like, well,
that makes sense.
I think this guy would be good. I'm going to call this guy because I have his phone number and I'm going to call and talk to him and see what we can work out. So magic, most of that has been him. However, before he was a board member, we still had a few magic shows here or there. And those were really people that just contacted us. If you search for theater in Charleston area, we will be one of the first, like a Google search.
Right.
The Alban Art Center will be one of, if not the first thing that pops up, the second or third, theater that pops up. Yeah. And most of those ones that pop up are, for a lot of talent, are too big of a venue. The Clay Center and the Municipal and the Civic Center, those are big, giant houses that the smaller guy is never gonna get into. Sure. So we're probably the first one that pops up after you scroll through those, for sure. So a lot of it is people contacting us. There are a few things that we have went after, and we saw something. A board member saw a show, or I saw a show that I thought would work well here. I saw it somewhere else, and then I contacted the people that are in charge of that, doing diligent research. I think one of the biggest ones, which I know helped you out a little bit too, with the late great Ed Asner, came to do two shows with, actually 2 shows in person, 3 shows total he did with us. Was really just answering an email. His daughter sent me an email and I replied, because she was looking for a venue in the state to do a show.
I mean, how could you not reply?
I thought it was fake, but I was like, just on the off chance this is real, let me reply to her. And sure enough, it wasn't fake. And I'm so glad that I answered that email.
Yeah,
because that was that's been one of my favorite theatrical experiences of all time, was working with Ed. That was a great time.
Well, yeah, and he up until he died, is still just an amazing actor.
Yeah,
very sharp.
We had a show booked with Ed 2 months after he passed that obviously had to be canceled. Yeah, he was working all the way until to the very end. His memory with like memorizing lines and whatnot was not failed by any means, but was not as sharp. But as far as wit and timing he was on top of that.
Yeah,
there was no one sharper than Ed Asner in that respect. I just enjoyed. I think some of my favorite moments in that experience wasn't even really on stage. I mean, the first time when the lights came up and you look over and you're like, I'm on stage with Ed Asner. How crazy. Like that moment is something I'll never forget. But my favorite moments of that experience were in rehearsal and backstage with just his quick wit and the banter between him and Mitch, the director. Like that was my favorite parts for sure.
Well, he liked to pick at you a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That was just his personality. It's kind of sarcastic and kind of pick at you, but it was great.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's a different generation where that was how everybody interacted, and I grew up with that. That's how my grandfather was. That's how my father. That's how I am to a certain degree. So me and Ed hit it off real quick with that. He'd zing me and I'd zing him back, which I think he appreciated a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that you had that kind of religious upbringing. My grandfather was a pastor, so I had a little bit of that. And there's just a difference, I think, in smaller town religion. Because it's the town tends to be a little closer, I think, within those churches.
Sure.
You know, in a small town, we're in a larger area, maybe you may not know everybody, but you go to church in a small town, you know every single person that's there.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, well, in this town and with the things that I'm obviously involved in a lot in this community. We just started going to a church pretty regularly about a year ago, and everybody already knew who I was.
Right.
I had to catch up on who everybody else was. But that's that's one of those things. A lot of times, at least in St. Albans, I don't personally like that. I don't like that everybody has a preconceived notion of who I am before I get to feel them out. But that's tends to be how it falls a lot of
Yeah,
times.
but that's a good thing. You know, they know you because they appreciate what you're doing.
Most of the time that is true.
If they really hated what you're doing, you'd know that too, but it'd be a different reaction.
Also very true. Very true.
If you're getting a lot of cold shoulders, then you might want to worry.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, I hope and hope and pray that I have a decent reputation in this town, and I think I do for the most part.
Yeah, you have.
There's only a few people that don't like me, and that's their loss.
Do you have over the years? Do you have, was there a time that you tried something that didn't work, that you're like, okay, that didn't work, we won't do that again?
So to be honest with you, and this pains me to say it, and I think it will make everybody in this town sad to hear it. The one thing that just hasn't worked for us here at the Alban, at least in the last 10 years, is film. Film has been the hardest thing for us.
That's surprising.
The problem is the industry is not set up for the little guys like us.
Yeah.
We tried to do movies for free, like a community thing. We're not even going to charge you to come. But then you have to have a sponsor to pay for the rights, because you have to pay for the rights. And the rights aren't, in the big scheme of things, Michael, the rights are not drastically expensive. They're not.
Right.
However, $200 to $300 per film, and then your donation box gets set out and you only have $20 in it at the end of the night.
Right.
At the end of the day, even if we're losing $180, $280 on a regular basis, that adds up. And we're a nonprofit, and I remind people of that often.
That's right.
Nonprofit goal is not to make a profit, but our goal is also not to lose.
That's right. Money. You want to at least break even.
We've got to at least break even. And film has been one of the things that has been the hardest thing for us to break even on.
Yeah.
With a sponsor, we break even a little bit more often, obviously, because the sponsor pays for the rights. But at the end of the day, we're turning on the lights. We're, in theory, paying an employee to be here and manage the building. Right. And if I'm only making $20, I'm still losing money because I paid that employee at least 3 hours worth of work.
Well, if you ask somebody, they're like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome if they'd start showing movies there. I've said that myself before.
Yeah, everybody, I had 3 people tell me that yesterday.
But you got to actually show up to keep.
Yeah, you got to actually show up. And you've got to. People say, well, why don't you charge some tickets? Okay, we could charge a ticket, but then we also have to pay the rights and pay a percentage of our ticket sales to the rights holders. So now we would be making more because the rights would be paid for and we would have a little bit of ticket sale, but still a lot of it's going back to that big company that is nowhere close to St. Albans. And at the end of, I've really prided ourselves for the most part of investing in artists locally. They might not be in this zip code, but they're in the local area. Right. And investing in them before I send money to Hollywood at the end of the day. Nothing against Hollywood, but they're not giving me anything.
That's right. I actually think that's a great way to do it. And I've been talking with the West Virginia Film Office, and I know they're doing a lot of to try to encourage Hollywood to come. There's no reason we can't be something similar to, say, Pittsburgh or something like that. But right, we're still in the early stages of really using that office to try to bring people in. So we're getting a little bit, but it's just a trickle. But I think they're missing out because West Virginia, there's so many great places to film. There's so much talent here.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one time, not to say the one time, but the times that film has worked in this location has been when it is a local film. Somebody made a local film and we showed it here, and we had like a red carpet.
Right.
That kind of deal. Like the premiere was here. We've had people show up for those.
Yeah.
I've got a board member right now that has last year wanted to show a silent film, and he's got 3 silent films on the schedule this year to show here at the Alban. And I'm more confident in those than I am showing something that was in a movie theater last year, because those silent films aren't something you ever get to see on a
Yeah,
regular
it's
basis,
kind of an
especially in
experience.
a theater setting.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that was at the movie theater last year, the people that are really going to go see those films went to see it at the theater
Right.
last year, and now they're watching it on Netflix or Prime or whatever in the convenience of their own house.
That's right.
So I think those niche things like silent films or a locally made and produced film, those will work in our location. But as far as like second run movies, it's one of those. I'm not saying I'll never do it again, because the building was an old movie house.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
know like you have memories of coming to watch movies here.
Absolutely.
Probably more than half the community has memories of watching film in here. However, it's not the same industry as it was in
That's right.
1938 when this was built. And
Well, back then we
also,
didn't have an easy way to watch movies if you
sure,
didn't go to the theater
yeah,
or see it
you
on
didn't
a
have a
network.
Netflix. Yeah. Yeah. And also at the end of the day, back in 1938, this house had about twice as many seats as it did then too.
Did it
So,
really?
yeah. I want to say, I'd have to go back out and look at my lobby because there's some information about when the building opened out there, and I can never remember the numbers, but I want to say it was like 400 to 500 seats were in this building when it opened up in 1938. And now we're sitting at 200. So the people don't realize that we built a stage in here, so that alone took about probably 7 to 10 rows of seating out. And I'm pretty sure back in 1938 the seats weren't as wide as they are now either.
That's kind
So
of scary.
yeah, so you were able to fit more people in each row too. But I want to say it was like 400 to 500 was the house size
Yeah,
when
no
we
idea.
opened up.
Yeah. Yeah, the older theaters, especially, those are not comfortable seats
No,
with
no,
that.
I think
The
they were
Alban
like wooden
actually
chairs.
does, the Albans is actually not too bad, but if you go to say like Municipal or Keith Albee, some of those, the theater's great. It looks
Yeah,
beautiful, but those seats,
yeah, the seating is
you're
not so
pretty
great. I
tight.
agree. Yep.
Yeah, you're pretty tight. It was there. We just had the Oscars. Was there a movie that you loved for last year?
I'm show my ignorance here, Michael. Not really. I didn't get the downfall of being in arts and entertainment is that you don't get to go experience a lot of
You're
it
too
because
busy.
I'm always busy. So there wasn't really the only thing I think I even saw that was Oscar nominated last year, and this will make all the ladies proud, was Barbie. That's the
Yeah,
only
it was a
thing I
good
think I
movie.
saw. And I think I saw that with I forget who I watched that. My wife and maybe her mother. I think I saw that with. Um, the year before, I watched a lot more because my wife's mom lived with us that year, and she was always in on that side of the family. They always have like an Oscar party, and you watch
Yeah.
all the films so you can vote and whatnot. So I ended up watching a lot more 2 years ago just because she was in the house with us. Now now unless Paw Patrol or
Oh my God.
um,
Paw Patrol and Bluey.
Paw Patrol and Bluey, if those aren't nominated, I didn't see them anymore. That's how it goes.
It's funny how like every generation has that show, and or maybe a couple shows, but now
Sure.
it's Paw Patrol and Bluey. Those depending on the age, it
Yep.
usually starts with Bluey, moves into Paw Patrol.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was when my kids were growing up, it was Barney and the Wiggles.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. No doubt. Yeah, that my son, I was gonna say, I think the only thing we actually went to the theater for last year was the Mario movie. We went out like the week that came out because my son is a big Mario fan. So
everybody's a Mario. The kids, they love Mario, and I'm like, that He's 30 years old now.
Yeah, I bet he's older than that now, to be honest with you, Mike. I think he came. When did he come out? I thought he had a birthday similar to mine. I think he's closer to 40.
Well, he probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right. It was probably in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
that first came out. And now with the movie, it's popular again.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge.
Yeah,
that's when you go to
all my grandkids were watching.
We go to Walmart or somewhere to buy clothes for the kids every once in a while. You know, it's Mario and Sonic and Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol isn't even there because they probably can't get the licensing. But it's Sonic and Mario everywhere.
Well, hey, Adam, thanks for taking some time, man. This has been
Absolutely.
great. I think what you're doing is so important, especially not to get into it, but we're kind of in an area that doesn't necessarily as a whole support the art community with that. But our little section of that area does.
Yeah.
And I think we're really blessed to have a place to go that you can kind of center the community art around. And we're definitely blessed to have you here running it, because you can see the improvement. The last 15 years, Em and I have, Em's gotten involved with stuff. We love going to shows. There's always something going on, something to do. And I'm not sure that we always had people talking about the Alban Arts Center, not because it was anything bad. It just wasn't doing enough to draw the attention to it. And now,
20 years ago, it was a church.
Yeah,
so it wasn't doing. I don't want to say it was doing anything for the community, but not for the community to come into and
a little different. Yeah, nothing against churches.
Yeah,
but we do have one about every block.
Yeah, I think
we don't have an art center.
Somebody told me that at one point in time, St. Albans was at least nationally recognized for having the most churches per square mile or per, like within city limits. Or
that's great, but it's not going to bring people in.
Yeah. Most of the time. I will say some churches in this area now are doing some more artistic type things that will bring some people
You're
in.
Right.
I don't know if that's just the changing of the times in general, or just I think there's a change in West Virginia as a whole in the last 5 to 10 years, as the industries that have supported our economy are getting smaller. We're having to look for those sources of revenue elsewhere. And I think tourism is from what I've observed and the numbers I see at the state, it's one of the fastest growing industries in the state. We have a beautiful state. Just
we do.
Eliminate all the everything else. Just come and look at the natural landscape. We have a beautiful place, but we also have a rich culture and history here as well, that if we embrace that and our artistic leanings as well, I think that theater and music and film and all of those things are really helping build the tourism industry in the state too. Yes. And as people come to an area to look at the beautiful landscape, but what do they do when the sun goes down? They need a show, they need a concert, they need a play, they need something to go to in the evening hours too. So I think as a whole, the state is, not everybody is on board to that by any means yet, but I do see a shift in that.
Great. The last few years continues. Especially, we're definitely seeing that, and which we should. Our state is beautiful, and if you're an outdoorsy type person, especially, why wouldn't you want to come here?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my wife runs a resort. She's the general manager of a resort down in Mingo County, which is right on the Hatfield McCoy Trail, and they are doing rentals like gangbusters down there. It's they can't build cabins fast enough for people to not fill them all up. There's so much down there, and that the Hatfield McCoy Trail system is millions of dollars is going into that and coming out of that trail system down in southern West Virginia.
I know, it's awesome. I love it. Let's keep building it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Adam, before I let you go, where can we find you? Where can we find the Art Center on social media?
So the Art Center, albanartcenter.com is our website, which we're in the process of redoing. Hopefully we'll be out within the next month, all new and improved, albanartcenter.com. On social media, Alban Art Center is our Facebook page, and as well as on Instagram as well, it's Alban Art Center. And as far as me, Most everything I post nowadays is either my kids or Alban Art Center anyways. But
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. What's your, what's the next showing at the Alban?
The next show, we just cast Cabaret yesterday,
Ooh.
actually. So Cabaret is coming up at the end of May, first week of June, I believe, are the weekends for that. We've got a phenomenal cast, a phenomenal director. My cohort, Marley Carter, is directing that. And
Oh, yeah. She's excellent.
yeah, Marley's phenomenal. I've been very lucky in that respect to have another we're a staff of two here. It's me and Marley every day, all day. And we are both.
Hey, we're a staff of two at the podcast.
Yeah, see, that's all you need. You just need two. But we're both very, like, I call us the theatrical utility tools, because we're both proficient in just about everything. We both can take a role on stage and knock it out of the park. We can direct, we can build a set, we can. I put on my own makeup before this myself, all that, we can do makeup, etc. We can do a little bit of all of it. So I've been very blessed that I've got her, because when in doubt, if I'm doing these other 5 jobs, she can do the other one. And with Cabaret, that is a show that I know
big
Marley.
one. That's going to be
It's
awesome.
a big one, and I know there's nobody that I would rather direct that show than Marley Carter. She's going to knock it out of the park. It's going to be a good one.
Well, Adam, thanks for taking the time. We got to do this again. At some point,
please.
we need to come back. Part 2.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, hold on one second. Hope you enjoyed that, Adam Bryan. I'm just talking head on here. Adam, talented guy. He's actually out there making a positive impact on the world while I'm on here, playing around with my podcast. Now, I really, I was looking forward to having Adam on, because I really am impressed with the work that he does with our community theater. And it's, when I say that, it sounds like all he does is put on plays, and that's not it. He directs and he manages the theater. He's involved within the communities. He's the president of the local chamber of commerce. He does a lot here in the community, not unlike most small town theater runners. It's an involved job where, if you do it well, everybody loves you. But if you struggle or you have a hard time, everybody in the town's going to know that you're struggling. So that can be a little bit of pressure. Adam's just terrific. Emily and I talk all the time. The quality of plays that we get in this little town in West Virginia is better than a lot of the plays. Emily and I travel quite a bit, that we've seen in much, much bigger cities. You wouldn't expect that. We're very blessed here. The Alban does just a terrific job, and Adam's a big part of that. So if you're in our area, if you happen to live in West Virginia, I would encourage you to check out the Alban and some of the works that they do. I think he said the next performance is going to be Cabaret, which is pretty exciting. I remember my oldest, she was a dancer growing up, and I just loved watching her dance. Well, when she was a senior, they performed a song from Cabaret, and she was excellent in it. But it about killed me, because that's, it's kind of a sexy show, difficult on Dad to watch that, but she was terrific, and the show is terrific. I guarantee Emily and I will be at that one. So if you're local, check out the Alban Art Center. Worth your time. If you're local or not local, we would love here at the podcast to have your support. We were recently named a top 100 podcast by IMDb, which is the entertainment database. 15 million or so podcasts out there. We've worked really hard to get to this point, but we never expected to be on anybody's top 100 list. We're very blessed and thankful for that. If you go to imdb.com and look up the Too Opinionated podcast, that traffic on our page helps us a ton. It's free to do, and it'll tell you everybody that's been on the podcast. And we've had over 800 people have appeared on this show, and I guarantee probably about 80% of them you'll recognize. You'll know, and the ones you don't, you probably should know. We've been very blessed with the guests that we've had on the show. I've said many times I would put our guest list up against any other show, talk show, anything. I'm very, very proud of it. Our website is meistercon.com. If you go there, you can find all 752 episodes and counting, audio and video versions. So check that out. If we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, covering a convention, anything we have going on, you can find out on the website, meistercon.com. And lastly, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. It's free, really does help us out. You know, we're blessed in a lot of ways that we're a small town father and son podcast, but it's difficult competing against much larger podcasts when you're in a small town, dealing with people that are on the coast mostly, and you're kind of more in the middle of the country. It's not easy, so we can definitely use your support. Those subscriptions are a big part of that. So YouTube, MeisterCon Pod, just hit subscribe. Really helps us out. Please support Adam and the Alban Art Center as well. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. You know, not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. You know, those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, you know, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.